Welcome to another weekly outlook. Let's take a little look at gold and at GBP JPY today, and we'll see what we can expect over the next week. So starting out with gold, first of all we'll look up from the monthly and then we'll work our way down through the time frames towards the 4 hour and potentially the 1 hour. So first of all, on the monthly, you can see that we've been bullish for quite some time, and then we've done quite a bit of time in this area here, sort of stuck in this little range area, if you like, somewhere between this sort of like 1990 area and kind of down around this area, even though we have broke that low of 1688. Now we're just kind of moving down a little bit more because we can see that it hasn't got like a clear direction that it's pushed in overall, though over that time when we look at the weekly you can see we're in this sort of like bullish uptrend. Now what's quite interesting at this point is you can see that we've rejected these highs up above here going back to March 22, and again we had a closure 1 week above and then straight back down the next week back in August of 2020 as well, so just during that sort of COVID push that we had in the weeks prior to that. So because we came this level a few times and seem to struggle, it's obviously a clear area of reaction. A couple of weeks back we had a strange candle on the weekly. Notice we've got almost no wick on either end of that candle, which is quite unusual. So for it to close on that area, and then again last week closed with very little direction really. We had a good push up at the start of the week with all the banking issues, and then we had a correction move all the way back down, and then again no real sort of clear direction from last week for us. Now what would be quite interesting if we then broke that down to the daily level a little bit more and just see what else is clear there. So we obviously have like this nice little range area going on if we look in this sort of area here. So it'd be nice to see maybe a little push back down here. Now what would be really interesting at that point for me is then if we got a little closure underneath here. Certainly if you have a look at this little area of interest as well, so we'll just mark that out. So if we got a nice little push down, if we got a continuation, look at how clean that would be on the daily down here. That would be very, very interesting to see. Now I'm not saying we're going to get a push all the way back down to the 1800s necessarily, but it just shows how clean that push could actually be if we did get a break below that 1900 key area. Now what's more likely is what we might see is just a sort of correction down here. I'll move to the 4 hour so you can see that a little bit better. Just zoom that out for you. So on the 4 hour you can see that we've actually broke the lows at the back end of last week on Friday. So we broke the lows, and this didn't actually create a little push up, so it'd be therefore interesting to see if we did get a little push up off of this area to then potentially continue back down to fill that range. So that would be our first look heading towards the sort of 1935 area. And like I say, we then make a little break below, retest and continue back down towards the 1900s. That would be my first sort of area of interest. Now the reason I'm thinking that might be a high probability is we're still in a position now where the dollar is in a position of strength. We're probably going to look to see the dollar continue with that push of strength over the next week or so as well, and possibly beyond that point. And based on that, I would therefore expect gold to try and come back down and just sort of correct this move that we're seeing here, which seems to be a very clean area on the whole. So therefore it would make sense to potentially see that. You can also see that on the 4 hour, and probably when we go back to the daily, it's kind of creating this sort of like little double top area for us, which would be another potential sign of coming back down. So that'll be interesting to see that how that pans out over the next few days or so. Obviously the other potential is we do break above this area, so that would be really interesting to see. Going back to the daily, if we did get a closure up above this sort of 2000 area, the last time we got a good closure above there, like we said, was in March of 22, and therefore we then might potentially see a push up towards the 2050 area. But again, is that probable? I'm not really sure that it is, but it's always a possibility, so therefore that would be our consideration. And what we would likely see on the daily is maybe it's a good push up. We might get a little sort of retest back to then continue towards those highs up there. So that would be what I'll be looking for on gold over the sort of next couple of days or so, and then we'll see how that pans out towards the back end of the week. Okay, to GBP JPY now. So we'll just take a little look at this again on the monthly first of all. So if we just take a little zoom out, you can see that you know, on the whole we've been in this sort of like downward trend recently, but if we just zoom in a little bit more, because we're based on each of these candles being a monthly time frame, you can see we are actually in a bullish uptrend there. Moving that onto the weekly, and we'll try and identify some key areas. Now, looking at that, it's actually quite a messy range that it's been in. We haven't had a great deal of direction going all the way back until the summer of last year, the summer of 2022. So we just kind of look at this area here. So we're going back to May 2022 at this point, and it's given us no clear direction on the weekly at any point there, and that's kind of been the theme right up until this week. So we have had a couple of good little pushes up and down, but on the whole it's not given us a clear direction. So therefore, if we move on to the daily at that point, and we'll just see if we can get any more clearer zones from doing that. So we've got a clear area of reaction around the 164.25 area. Remember, those quarter point areas are good areas of reaction, and also an area that's key when taking trades. So be careful taking a trade on 164.240, for example. Personally, I would normally try and wait for a closure above that 0.250 area, because those quarter points can be very reactive areas. They're psychological levels. So again, on the daily, we're still stuck inside of this range. You can see that on the daily for Friday, we did close below this area here of 160.30, 160.35 or so. So we have gotten a closure below there, but what's quite interesting is all of last week we were rejecting this area around here. You can see we've tried to fill this clean candle to the left, but each of these wicks shows that it's been rejecting that area, and again Friday rejected that as well. So I guess going into the start of this week, it'll be very interesting to see whether we can just get a little retest of this now area of resistance, and can we push down a little bit further. However, again, with the news that we've had with the British pound in terms of inflation, etc., what would also be likely is that we could actually just pop back up above this area again, potentially get a little retest of it to see if it's now formed support once again for a push back up towards that 163, 163.50 and so on. So once again, the pound against the yen has not given us any clear direction, but those are our two possibilities in terms of what is likely to happen over the coming days, and potentially going towards the back end of the coming week. And again, if we get a closure above that area, you can see a beautiful clean candle to the left from February 23. So again, if we got a closure above there, I would be certainly looking to execute buys to try and fill that range for that area there. Coming back down, like I say, if we do get a closure below there, we have got from a little retest coming down a nice area of 300 pips there, and if we do get the closure above, we probably fill that pip range there for about 220, 230 pips. So that's what I'd be looking for on the whole from the pound against the yen. You could sort of tidy up these ranges and then see what else looks like it's possible to happen. So if we just moved a couple of those just to sort of readjust and see what those look like. So that looks quite nice and clean at that point now. But it looks like based on moving those, we've had a little closure below, we rejected it, we've come back up. So therefore, it would now look likely that we might come up to this potential area here. We might get a little retest, and then again try and check up against those highs around that 162.85 or so. So that'll be really interesting to see. We'll see how the week pans out. Good luck with your trades for this week, and as always, if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.